perhaps the most resentful, the most openly racist, and the most dumbest decision imaginable. The committee of the U.S. women's basketball team to participate in the 2024 Olympics in Paris has decided not to include the leading scorer of all time in women's college basketball, phenomenal rookie, and international superstar, Caitlin Clark of the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark is, I think, without a doubt, one of the top 12 to 14 women's players in the world, certainly in the WNBA. She ranks in the top 75% of almost every statistical category that you would measure when it comes to guard play. She's in the top, I'm talking about the top 75% of the people selected for the women's Olympic basketball team. So she's better than 75% of the women in most of these statistical categories. Points scored, assists. She even ranks highly in rebounds for a guard, averaging something close to 6 rebounds a game. She's a threat, and then again, the top statistical category when it comes to three-point shooting. Caitlin Clark is on the merits, an Olympian. But even if it was a close call, it's just absolutely brain dead, dumb to leave off Caitlin Clark. For years, we've heard women complain about the fact that they don't receive the attention or the treatment of men, not just in basketball, but in really any sporting endeavor. You can hear arguments about equal pay. You can hear arguments about mode of travel. Do we fly coast? Do we fly first class? Do we fly private? When the bottom line truth is, sports is an entertainment product, not so different from movies. And you're going to be judged by the box office. How many butts do you put in seats and how many eyeballs do you attract to the television? And no one has ever attracted more eyeballs to women's college basketball or women's basketball than Caitlin Clark. Her initial ratings in the WNBA seem to suggest she's forcing them to change stadiums from 3,000 person seat venues to 20,000 person seat venues. She's getting in the millions of viewers for a sport that was totally bereft of audience. It's subsidized by the NBA. It's not a profitable venture. And here comes along not just a superstar, but a savior. You could argue that Caitlin Clark is one of the most recognizable names and stars right now in basketball. Who we have in the NBA Finals? Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kyrie Irving. I'm telling you, while she might not be quite on the level of Kyrie Irving, she's getting there. Caitlin Clark. And there is no other women's player even in the realm of potential audience. And the Women's Olympic Basketball Committee, made up of 5 individuals, and it's worth knowing who these 5 individuals are. On the committee to select the Olympic team, it includes South Carolina head coach and former U.S. coach Dawn Staley, Simone Augustus, an LSU assistant, Delisha Milton-Jones, the head coach at Old Dominion, Jennifer Rosati, the president of the Connecticut Sun, and Bethany Donovan, WNBA head of league operations, have decided it's in the best interest of their sport, of the Olympics, to leave out Caitlin Clark. This is just chock full of resentment. I think the resentment is wide. I think it could cast a wide net as the source of the resentment. All of a sudden she receives all this attention, and these other women have been playing for years. All of a sudden people only want to talk about Caitlin Clark. They want to talk about anything they knew nothing of before the WNBA. And she is heralded as a superstar because she is a superstar, and there's just petty human jealousy. You could argue that this decision reflects the worst characteristics of humanity, jealousy and resentment, and also racism. There is without a doubt a role that race is playing in the way that she is treated, in the treatment of Caitlin Clark. I mean, this is a sport primarily dominated by black women, in the NBA, black men. And now the face, by the way, of both leagues is white. In the NBA, that's either Nikola Jokic or Luka Doncic. In the WNBA, it's Caitlin Clark. And there is resentment and backlash. You can see it in the way the players treat her on the court. You can see it in the response in press conferences afterward. But above and beyond racism and resentment, this is brain dead dumb. None of us want to hear ever again about whether or not you're flying coach or first class. No one ever wants to hear your pay compared to the men in the NBA. Your savior has arrived at your doorstep, bringing along with her eyeballs and butts to be placed on televisions and in seats. You are there to finally create a market, a capitalist opportunity to get paid. And you pass. No thanks. Rather lean into petty jealousy. And even if you want to argue, well, is she really one of the 12 best players in America? We're not talking about Anna Kournikova here. And Anna Kournikova was a good tennis player. She was good. I don't want to take that away from her. But her primary attention was because she was hot. You're talking about a player who not only brings attention, but can play, is great. And she has said for her sake, that's fine. She told her coach at the Atlanta Fever, they've unleashed a monster. I think the WNBA has invited us all to ignore them. Ignore them at the Olympics. Ignore, as is par for the course and something we're used to doing, ignore women's basketball at the Olympics. What could have been a top 3 storyline? What? Simone Biles. I don't know what else at the Olympics, and I'm an Olympic fan. Everyone would have paid attention to Caitlin Clark. They've invited us to ignore them, which we're very used to doing. Ignore women's basketball. And for that, they should never receive a serious conversation ever again about their pay, their treatment, marketing. That's one of the favorite arguments that I like to make. WNBA would be as popular as the NBA if they would just be marketed. Well, you're being marketed, and you've rejected that marketing. And in response to all of that, Caitlin Clark has said they've unleashed a monster, but she said she responded this way to the disappointment of not being picked to the Olympics.
What was your level of disappointment not having your name on the roster?
Honestly, no disappointment. I think it just gives you something to work for. That's a dream. Hopefully one day I can be there, and I think it's just a little more motivation. You remember that, and hopefully in 4 years, when 4 years comes back around, I can be there.
Hopefully in 4 years I can be there. This is your savior, because if it's going to bring us back, it's going to be the class and the play and the popularity. This is your lifeline. This is your life vest. This is the buoy that has been thrown to you in the drowning sea of attention. And I can honestly say, if I'm drawn back to it, it will be because of Caitlin Clark. Resentful, racist, and brain-dead dumb by those that lead women's basketball.